Red alert. Red alert. This is not a drill. But unfortunately, too many in the media are treating it like one. What am I talking about? Well, Donald Trump, as we've been discussing, throughout his campaign said stuff that I would scream about. This is not acceptable, would be my message. About a lot of things, but specifically his words about the media. And so many people looked at me, tears just pouring down their face, spilling onto the ground. And they'd say, "Sir, I think you're being a little bit hyperbolic. I don't think Trump's going to try to go after media outlets that oppose him. He's not a fascist. How dare you call him such a thing?" And every time I would get that feedback, because y'all know, I really want to have a message that even more rational conservatives could not agree with necessarily, but respect and understand. I want a message that doesn't feel like it's just saying provocative things for clicks or something. I want one that is actually attached to rationality and facts. So I would always do introspection and go, am I? When he says the government should come down hard on MMC, am I the one blowing this out of proportion? Is it a joke to say bullets would fly through the media and I wouldn't mind about that? Is it a joke to say that they're criminals? Is it a joke to say ABC should be pulled off the air? Is it a joke to say CBS should be pulled off the air? Am I the one who's wrong about this? And I kept coming to the conclusion, no, a person who respected our Constitution would not say those things, joke or not. And I knew that Trump wasn't joking. But he then gets elected. And I've seen a few different MAGA adjacent media figures going, wait, why is he saying this stuff? He won already. And my reaction is yes. Of course, it wasn't just rhetoric. He was planning on it. So we go back to this. I want to circle back to him at a press conference, deciding in full view for everyone to see, to make clear his priorities. Oh, it's all about lowering costs. That's the only reason we voted for Trump. And I kind of believe some people, but Trump sure is not prioritizing that. So remember what he said at this press conference. While we go through this segment, we have a lot to talk about. Please do click the subscribe button. Because after him saying this outrageous statement, a bunch of people in the media who times gone by would not do such a thing are defending his attack on the press.
I'm going to be bringing one against the people in Iowa, their newspaper, which had a very, very good pollster who got me right all the time. And then just before the election, she said I was going to lose by 3 or 4 points. And it became the biggest story all over the world because I was going to win Iowa by 20 points. The farmers loved me and I loved the farmers. And it was interesting the way she did it. She brought it down 2 weeks before. She said I was going to only win by 4. That was a big story. But that was good because she brought it down from like 22 points to 4 or whatever the number was. Way up. An easy win. We never even thought to go there. I respect them. I love them. And they understand there's no reason to go there because she brought it from way up.
Okay, and then he's just ranting about the Ann Seltzer poll. Yeah, she got it wrong. Sometimes outlier polls happen and they're wrong. But that's his justification to sue Ann Seltzer. And then he gets asked about social media influencers. Are they on the list too?
It's coming on. I want to expand on the defamation lawsuits. Could you see moving that to other people with individual platforms, social media influencers, people that...
Or newspapers, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I do. I think you have to do it.
And that's what he's doing. The ABC ridiculous concession because they're afraid. Now Ann Seltzer, he's saying social media influencers. In my discussion on Piers, I pointed out that no, it was not wrong for George Stephanopoulos. In a technical legal sense it was, but even as the judge clarified, it was not wrong to refer to the behavior that Trump was found liable of as rape. Even though he wasn't found legally liable of rape, instead sexual abuse. But again, in common parlance, that's what that means. And Piers said, should I send this clip to Trump? Please. Because unlike ABC, I obviously don't currently have the funds to defend myself in court, but I know we could rally together as a movement to defend such a lawsuit. I don't think Trump's going to do it, but he is saying social media influencers there, and I would love to bring this case to court to prove to the MAGA folks that Trump is just trying to scare people and drain them of money so that they get in line. And we'll look at someone breaking down the implications of that as we go along. First, you have Scott Jennings on CNN not understanding the implications of this, not understanding the implications of, I'm going to keep saying it, Trump promising for the government to come down hard on MSNBC. And then all of a sudden, MSNBC seems to be afraid of his retribution. Weird. And people who used to say they stood for the Constitution are now proudly going, yeah, sure, Trump should try to make those people deathly afraid of him.
Does Donald Trump have money? He has money with the RNC. He has money with his super PACs. And his money has money. Look at all of the tech billionaires that are around him now. There is an indefinite amount of money. And I believe wholeheartedly that the Des Moines Register, very much like ABC Disney, is going to capitulate.
Guys, the quote is, we have to, sorry, this is Michael Cohen, not Scott Jennings, but it's going to get to Scott. We have to straighten out our press, is Trump's quote. I've gone through the compilations before. If you're a Trump supporter who thinks I'm being hyperbolic, please go look at them. Criminals. They shouldn't be allowed to do what they do. The quote I keep saying, which my audience is nauseous hearing so often, about the coming down hard. The statements about licenses being revoked for outlets he doesn't like. It's not the job of the president to straighten out the press. Actually, it's explicitly their job not to get involved in such things. Where are our constitutional conservatives? I know people are numb to Trump's scary rhetoric. We can't do that. That's why I'm coming to you in this state to say it, because everyone will, yes, gaslight you and pretend like you're insane for not thinking that presidents should be talking about, or incoming presidents, punishing the people who've wronged them in the press. And Seltzer got a poll wrong, and he wants to drain her and the Associated newspaper dry if they dare to defend themselves. That's what this is about. He can't win these cases. He knows that. He knows ABC would have cleaned his clock in court, but he also knows that the fear of, number one, having to spend the money it takes to defend themselves, and declaring war and being in a war with the president throughout their presidency, it's something Ann Seltzer is probably not going to want to get into. So she's also going to have to bend the knee. And then one after another, outlets don't oppose Trump. It's an extremely, extremely scary prospect. And please stick around for the more level-headed analysis that we'll get to in a second. But first, Scott Jennings justifying it.
And I believe that Donald Trump has actually figured out a way how to change the way that media deals with issues, whether it's...
Are you worried at all about this, Scott, just where it could go? Not just the Donald Trump of it all, but, I mean, if he's creating precedent, it's for everybody.
Well, when you introduced, Michael, you used the word narratives, and I think one of the reasons Republicans are cheering on this muscular attitude from Trump and pushing back against some of this is because Republicans feel like constantly media organizations, especially in the throes of campaigns, work overtime to create false narratives that may shape the contours of the election. Look what happened. When this poll came out in Iowa, the entire English-speaking world was talking about the gold standard pollster, and Harris has this momentum, and ultimately what we were told was complete garbage. And if you talked to pollsters at the time, they would have told you, this is not real, this methodology is not good anymore. But that's not what people chose to run with, because it fit what most people in the press wanted the narrative to be. So he's pushing back on that.
Yeah, that's not what pollsters were saying. It's shocking that she got it so wrong. And if they think people should have to defend their very livelihood, people with not anywhere close to the resources of Donald Trump, for getting polls wrong? Let me introduce you to a bunch of Republican pollsters who purposefully flood the zone with whacked out polls in the right-wing direction. And I'm sure there's left-wing ones too. But that's not what Ann Seltzer did. She didn't want to get this so wrong. Her whole career was based off of being accurate. Now she's not going to be taken as seriously. That's not good for her. She has no interest in helping Harris, and it doesn't make any sense that making Democratic voters more hopeful about the election would then make more of them go out to vote. The biggest motivator is when you're a point or two behind, not 4 points ahead, because you think, oh, every vote counts. This narrative about polls that looked better for Harris being fake ones to help her, I don't understand that logic, because the better it looks for your candidate, probably the more likely you're just going to sit at home because you think, they're going to win, whatever. That's what happened with a lot of people who didn't vote for Hillary Clinton because they thought, I don't think she's going to win. And by the way, the polls made it very clear that Trump had a very good shot of winning, as was something we talked about a bunch before. And that's what was so scary about them. So there's no conspiracy. There's no fraudulent behavior on the part of these pollsters. But Trump wants the message to be sent out before he's even formally in office that you wrong him in the media, this whole freedom of the press thing, coming after you.
He won the election. Why do this?
This is a huge story that has enormous implications for the next 4 years. It's interesting that he's not suing Ann Seltzer, Des Moines Register, for defamation, but rather, basically false advertising, fraud. And I think he's emboldened by the ABC News settlement, and I think he's trying to sort of have a chilling effect on media. So, who have been very critical of Trump in his first administration. He said recently that he tamed the media when he was down in Wall Street Journal to ring the bell on Friday. I think he was right, and I think he's trying to send a message that, you write negative stuff about me or treat me as I see unfairly, I'm going to come after you with lawsuits. Now, he's a billionaire. He's got money to pay lawyers. This is not an official government lawsuit. This is just him and his campaign. But the Des Moines Register and Ann Seltzer, they don't have the sort of resources that he does. And, the net effect of this is that there's going to be a lot of journalists and pollsters who will think twice about what they do. And I hate to use the term, but this is sort of precisely what authoritarian people do. They scare people away from writing anything critical, and that strikes to the heart of the First Amendment. And
Exactly. We've heard from the right, when it's private companies enforcing a terms of service, that's censorship. And that means the left is for censorship and the right are the free speech warriors. And then a president is about to take office who's saying, not just in his private capacity he wants to target them, but that the government specifically should target them. In a Truth Social post that's still public. And they don't care. That's censorship in every sense of the word. And there's more outrage from MAGA when you point to that and say that's authoritarian. There's more outrage that you would call it that than the fact that he would embody that. And I'm really disheartened by people being willing to look past that. The thing that makes America, that's supposed to make America so special, is that we all put first and foremost these incredible American ideals, which starts with freedom of speech, freedom of the press. And they're abandoning that because they've been convinced owning the libs or loyalty to Trump is more valuable. This, yes, is a show where I articulate my political positions, my policy stances. And so you might be someone who disagrees with my policy prescriptions. You might think, the universal health care program that Luke has outlined is a little bit too much for me. You might think that my stance on raising the minimum wage is wrong. You might disagree with the stance I have on a social view here and there. But while I'll still talk about those things because they're so important, we're in a time where that is so far from what should unite us, which is that anyone, super to the right on policy, to the left, should be able to share a common dedication to constitutional principles, which flies right in the face of what Trump is publicly on video promising for his intention to be. And that News Nation host, News Nation kind of does the we're all in the middle on things type of jig. She went, he won the election. Why is he saying this? Because that's what authoritarians do. It's not a joke. It's not just campaigning. I tried to bring this up when we were talking about the ABC settlement on Piers. I know today's show has been so Piers backed, sorry. But it's important to show you how MAGA folks react to this, and this is where I'm mostly interacting with them. And their focus is so much on how, ABC bent the knee. That must prove that Trump was right when obviously he wasn't. But they don't have any concern for the message that Trump's trying to send.
It was not liable for rape.
It's obvious that Trump's constant promises to go after the outlets that wrong him, his constant promises to get the government to come down hard, his quote, not mine, on MSNBC, is what now outlets, unfortunately, like ABC, are afraid of. So they're wanting this to be over quickly as opposed to going to war with Trump, who's explicitly targeted them. And it's crazy that y'all are more outraged that Stephanopoulos used one term that in common parlance is synonymous with sexual assault, instead of the fact
actually not,
that Trump
though. That's
was
where you're
found
wrong.
liable.
Sorry,
Trump
that's where
was
you're wrong.
found liable of
Sorry,
sexual
I'm
abuse.
sorry.
No, the judge.
I'm sorry,
please,
Luke.
Piers,
Luke,
just
you're
last and
making,
then go.
Luke,
the
you're
judge
making exactly
actually clarified.
Luke, you're making the same
that's
mistake,
what that
Luke.
means.
With respect, you're making the same mistake. It is not the same thing. Otherwise, there would not be
Then why
different
did the judge
categories.
clarify
Hang
that?
on. There would not be different categories of sexual assault and rape. They are different crimes. So if you accuse somebody of the more serious offence of rape, wrongly, repeatedly, in an interview.
Okay, yeah, and I've already explained that whole thing, why Piers is wrong. I won't do it again. I know you guys are getting bored of that, but here's a little more.
About how much they were willing to settle, knowing that they could avoid the discovery process. You know this, Piers.
And just to add one other point on this, because I brought it up multiple times with you, Piers, I would love to get an answer on it relating to this. Is there any outrage? Is there any outrage that Trump today was saying, yeah, and this is just the beginning, we're going to go after all these different outlets, and Seltzer for doing a poll that Trump didn't like, Trump says he wants to go after, and he specifically said the government should come down hard on MSNBC. That's exactly against what I know the two other MAGA folks on the panel say constantly about their principles, which is pro-freedom of the press, but then Trump's constantly talking about the press in ways that prove that's
I think,
very
you
much
know
not
what?
his
I think
principle.
if on the Democrat side, if you go after someone like Donald Trump relentlessly and you try and imprison him relentlessly and you try
Then
and
he gets
ruin
to
his life
attack
and you
you
try and
with the
do
government.
everything you can to destroy him and incarcerate him, and then he wins and he flatlines you all in the election, yeah, a little part of him is probably thinking, yeah, there's going to be a bit of pain. Sorry, going to be a bit.
I know that Piers is not American, at least from my understanding. So maybe we give him a pass on not understanding what the Constitution says. Kidding. If you're going to talk about American politics, you should know. But that's not how it works. People don't get to induce pain in the press wielding governmental power. The presidency, the office of the presidency, because they're mad that the media did a lot of negative stories. Which, interestingly, I know MAGA would say I'm a part of, I'm doing the type of things that they call wrong on the part of the media. And that, I have Trump derangement syndrome, and I'm always saying he wants to do bad things. And one of the things they probably would point to is how much I was talking about his threats against the media. How dare you call him authoritarian for saying that we should shut down outlets he doesn't like? And then he comes out after winning and goes, yep, I'm serious. So no, we weren't. It's not Trump being vindicated. We, in the darkest sense, are being vindicated in that our alarm sounding was correct. I also love, hate, but that they say, you tried to lock up Trump. Not true. Independent prosecutors. Okay, but we've gone through that debate so much. But that's why Trump can now do anything to any Democrat, any media institution that had nothing to do with his legal prosecutions. But then they say, yeah, Liz Cheney should be put in jail for being a part of the January 6th Select Committee. Wait, I thought you said wanting such a thing about your political opponents was bad. No principles, just partisanship. It's sickening. Tell me your thoughts in the comments. Again, if you do want to support the work of this show in such a time, you can click the subscribe button or go a step further by clicking that join button below.